fishing. People, when you're in the mood, let's go fishing. Well, it's just me and you. Head on down to the fishing hole. Grab your hat, get your pole. Let's go fishing when you're in the mood.
Canadian sport fishing has been brought to you in part by Rapala, premium fishing gear crafted from experience. Yamaha, Conquer Outdoors. Dickies, quality workwear since 1922. Bait Cloud, bring the fish to you. Easy Docker, docking made easy. Did you know that the Great Lakes has some of the best walleye fishing in North America? Yep. Lake Erie has one of the biggest commercial fisheries in the Great Lakes, and they catch tons of walleye. Now, that's just a commercial fishery. The sport fishery is also amazing. You know, over the years, I've had the chance to fish the Detroit River, which connects Lake St. Clair to Lake Erie. And in the springtime, from about March all the way to June, there are thousands of boats that fish the river and also Lake St. Clair because there's so many walleyes. At that time of the year, the fishermen are mostly jigging in the current because the walleyes have come into the fast water to spawn. But later on in the summer, those fish move out into the main Great Lakes, and in that case, Lake Erie. So Lake Erie is an amazing fishery, especially trolling out in open water. But one of the things that you have to choose is the right days where the wind isn't blowing too strong and the waves aren't too high. Jeff, if somebody was to say I'm going fishing for walleye on Lake Erie today, I'd say don't do it.
I'd say the same.
Don't do it. We came out here because they were calling for light winds of like 7 miles an hour. I think we're around 12 to 15 miles an hour. So, you know, one of the nice things about having a 17-foot all-round fishing boat is that you can mount a downrigger on it. This particular downrigger is actually on an elevated base. So this is a riser here. So when I don't need the downrigger, I just undo these 4 bolts that are on the bottom, and the whole downrigger comes off. And this is an electric one, and I actually have the plug right underneath this storage compartment right here, which is kind of nice. So I'm constantly adjusting it up and down. So the nice thing about an electric is that when you release line, you just pull on the lever and let the line go down. When you want to bring it up, you just touch the power button and it brings it up. And the counter is extremely accurate, so you know exactly what depth it's at. Jeff?
Yeah?
It's a little breezy. You know, it's crazy because the wind's pulling us, like pushing us, and this fish, like, it's just solid. That's one thing about getting these walleye out here, Jeff. There's not much of a fight, like casting, you know, like in shallower water or jigging and stuff.
Yep.
Okay, it looks like another eater. A little smaller.
Beautiful.
Good one. Watch your step. Man, I don't know, you said that you'd be out in your boat with these conditions? And you know, we could have hot dogs or something for dinner. No, we gotta be out here in these waves trying to get these fish. Come on. You know, they're not hooked very deep. Look at where he's hooked. Yeah, this is okay. Good, like, practice for balance and stuff. You know, it's hooked really lightly, but man, there we go. Okay, that's a nice eater. That guy's about 2 pounds. Very light colored, eh? You know, when you think about it, Lake Erie has an amazing fishery. They estimated the walleye populations this year at over 40 million. That's a lot of fish. You know, I'm looking at this blade on this worm harness, and it looks like jewelry, you know? It's actually got pink in it. Look at some nice blues, very metallic. So it's silver on the back side, but on the top side it's painted. This is a smaller single leaf blade, and you can see it only has 1 hook. This works fine if the walleye are aggressive, and they'll engulf the whole harness when they hit. And this color also works really well if you're fishing in shallower water or fishing the harness closer to the surface. I'd say within 15 feet of the surface. It's a really good color to use, like off pink. Closed captioning is brought to you by K100. We make water burn. You know, when you're out here on the Great Lakes, like Lake Erie, that has tons of walleye, they can still be really scattered all over the place. So there's a few things that are really important. Number one, having good electronics. So you can see on the screen, I'm using two screens. One is the hydrographic chart, and earlier we saw a lot of bait fish. So we actually marked 2 waypoints in about 68 feet of water. And on the right side is my down vision screen. So even though Jeff's at the back watching the rods, I'm constantly watching my speed, and I'm watching my screens to see if we mark any bait fish. A lot of times you won't mark the walleye. You'll just mark the bait fish, and then you'll get walleye on. The other thing that's really crucial, speed. So we're running worm harnesses. You don't want to run the worm harnesses too fast. So we're going anywhere from about, I'm going to say 0.9 to 1.3 miles an hour. And I know that because I'm looking right here. This actually has a GPS speed. So right now I'm going about 1.4. See 1.5. So because we're going into the wind, it's slowing our troll speed down a little bit. But what we want to do is just slow roll those blades. We don't want them to helicopter really quick. So right now I've just got a little pod of bait fish suspended at about 20 feet below the surface. There probably won't be any walleyes around it. We're looking for bait fish that are a little bit deeper because it's already October. Water temperatures are starting to drop, and a lot of the walleyes are going to be cruising anywhere from the bottom right up about 10, 15 feet. So as soon as I mark some deep water bait fish, we're probably going to get a fish on or lose a fish. So the electronics is really, really valuable for being out here. And also the miles per hour is much more accurate than having a speedo, you know, on your dash. So I pretty well just rely on the speed that I've got on my sonar screen because I know it's extremely accurate. It comes from the satellite. And Jeff, is the boat going to run itself if you net this fish?
Yep, I'll grab it for you.
Good job, Jeff. Okay, if you want to get back on the wheel. So he ate it pretty good. Where's that hook? That fish will go about 3.5 pounds. It's a perfect eating fish. Let's see here. He's going to have lots of energy. I'm going to keep him going into the current. Most people would keep them for eating. Look at that. There he goes, nice and fresh. Because we're fishing in deeper water, we are running one downrigger. So this downrigger is down about 73, 74 feet. We have a dipsy on that rod. This is what I'm calling the diving device here, the dipsy. This particular one is a green one with a harness. And then we have a bottom bouncer on that rod. So we're trying to really cover the water column. And we're using worms. Harnesses are one of the best rigs to use. You know, when you troll for walleyes in the Great Lakes, like Lake Erie, you have to have certain equipment. Most people will troll with diving devices like dipsy divers or jet divers, or they'll use downriggers, because the water depth can be anywhere from 40 to, let's say, 80, 90 feet, and the walleyes can be suspended anywhere in between. So during the summer months, the walleye will be suspended just below the surface, and most of the anglers are only running their lures down anywhere from about 15 to 30 feet below the surface. But as the Lake Erie temperatures drop, the walleye tend to go deeper, and they'll be down in 75 or 80 feet of water very close to the bottom. So that's where you need, if you're using a diving device, to have a lot longer lead, anywhere from about 300 to 400 feet back from the boat, to get those devices to go down almost to 70 feet. Or you use downriggers to get to the fish. So conventional trolling, just flatlining with just your lure or bait, just doesn't seem to work because the fish are down a lot deeper. So in our case, we were using all three things. We were using bottom bouncing rigs, we were using dipsy divers, and also a downrigger to get to where our fish were. And sure enough, we found it when we started catching them. You know, rod holders have come a long way. One thing that I like about the G3 that I'm in, it's a very versatile boat. So you can run rod holders, downriggers, or strip everything down and just fish, you know, with the electric trolling motor up at the front. So what I really like is, see right here, the G3 comes with these plates that fit into the gunwale, into this slot that's right here. So you can see that they've got two knobs that you can turn it, both of them, and it releases this plate off the gunwale. So the whole plate and rod holder can come off. What I've done is taken the base of the Scotty rod holder and I've actually bolted it right onto this plate that goes onto the gunwale. And then instead of just mounting the rod holder at the bottom here where it would be really low, I've actually gotten this extension, which is kind of nice. So what the extension does is enables you to have the rods up elevated so they're much easier to grab. Like right now I'm sitting, most of the time I'm standing up in the boat. The other thing that I like about the rod holders is that they have an actual clip at the bottom. So when you push it in, it locks into place. It can't come out. You know, walleye fishing in the Great Lakes can be very interesting. There are times when you control at different depths, both in Lake Erie and Lake Ontario, and body baits that look like bait fish work really well, or flashy spoons. But there are other times when the walleye don't seem to want to hit those artificials, and you got to use a worm harness with a worm. And that's what we found today. We were using a large bladed worm harness, and most of them are pretty bright, off yellows and chartreuse, sometimes with red in them, and using a full night crawler with a couple of hooks. Some of the hooks were two straight hooks, single hooks. Other ones had one single hook and then one treble hook at the back. So when you're using a worm harness, you don't want to troll too fast. So you want to have a really nice rotation of the blade, and that usually means trolling at about 1 to 1.5 miles an hour. Now that can be easy if the water's calm, and sometimes we even troll using the electric trolling motor, but when the water's rough, you can't use the electric trolling motor because it goes in and out of the waves, so you have to use the big motor. That makes it really challenging because if you go with the wind, the boat goes too fast. Unless you have a windsock or what's called a sea anchor to slow your boat down, you pretty well have to either work the motor in and out of gear or just troll into the waves. And of course, if you troll into the waves, your troll speed will go down, but then you're going to be going up and down, bouncing, which is very uncomfortable. So whenever you use harnesses, I find that you have to go at a slower speed. If you go too fast, it seems like the walleye won't hit them. You know, I've often wondered why a walleye that feeds on bait fish would hit a worm harness, and I really don't understand. But I know that they work. And in our case today, all of our fish were caught on worm harnesses. When you're out 6 to 8 miles in the middle of Lake Erie in water that's 70 to 80 feet deep, how the heck do you know where the fish are or how deep they are? That's where you need to have good electronics. In our case, we were using the 12-inch Axiom, which we have mounted right on the gunwale, just to the right of the console. So that way we can see everything in front of us through the windshield. And we had the screen set up on a split screen. On the left-hand side, we had the hydrographic chart, which shows our boat position and shows us what the depths are underneath. On the right-hand side, we had the down vision, which is really accurate in showing us the bottom contours and also if there's any bait fish and also any walleye. So we use those in conjunction with our speed, because on the hydrographic chart, we also get the speed from the satellite, because it's linked up, so we know exactly how fast we're going. So we use those three parts of the electronics to try to find the fish, and then when we find the fish, to stay on top of them. We actually put 2 waypoints down because we marked an area out in the open about 5 miles out that had quite a few bait fish. And we actually started catching the walleye around the bait fish. Now, we didn't mark the walleye where the bait fish were. They were just off the bait fish. So I found that even if you use electronics a lot of times, if you find the things that attract fish, so it might be structure, it might be a bottom break, or it might be bait fish, even though you don't mark the game fish because they could be moving too fast or be out the sides, keep fishing those areas because eventually you're going to hook up with some of the predators. So Jeff, when did you get hooked on fishing? When you were like a year ago?
I think it was about 4 years ago.
Are you serious?
Yep.
Not before that?
No.
What did you do before that? Watch TV?
I used to, as a child, be on Lake Joseph in a canoe,
Yeah.
pretending I was Hiawatha, and fishing the whole time.
You're not Hiawatha anymore?
I guess not.
No. You know, Jeff and I spent a lot of time together. He has an electronics shop in Welland, Ontario, and he's a big help with computers with me and stuff, screens, HD antennas, and he loves to fish. So it's nice that he could come out with me today.
I think it's a good-sized fish.
I hope so.
Getting some head shakes here.
Maybe a nice freshwater drum?
Maybe.
Oh yeah. It's a, not a bass.
It's a good-sized walleye.
Oh!
Oh, what a save!
Save!
Wow.
Save! I want to see that in a slow-mo. Okay, I'm gonna grab the wheel. Here. You grab the fish. Perfect. Come on. Did you see that? That fish was off the hook. It was at the last second. There. So I got a question. Do you ever eat walleye?
I do. I love walleye.
Did they taste okay?
They taste excellent.
I'm just messing with you. You know what? This guy's bleeding. So even though he threw the hook right at the net, let's put him in the live well. I'm going to turn the live well on so that we get some water in there. We let the other one go. Actually, that's like a meal for 2 people that size.
That's a perfect size, yep.
So I think this is a good routine for you driving the boat because you've been keeping the speed going really well. I'm keeping my eye on the downrigger and on the dipsies. So whenever you're ready, if you go back onto the motor,
Yep.
I'll get that line back in. But that was nice to see it hit.
That's great.
There's a couple of reasons why I like catching walleyes. Number one, they're schooling fish. You know, so if you find one, there's usually some more around. Not always, but most of the time. Number two, they're not big fighters, but when you land them, they're beautiful fish to look at. You know, in Lake Erie, they don't have the rich yellow colors like they do in some of the inland lakes where there's a lot of weeds. And that's because Lake Erie, for the most part, is all limestone or sand bottom. And right now with a lot of zebra mussels on the bottom. So the fish take on the color of their surroundings, which is just the bluish gray color of the water around them. But they still look beautiful. And one thing that I love is how good they taste. So the Lake Erie fishery is really a food fishery. Most of the people that I know that fish Lake Erie, because it has such a healthy population of walleye, will keep their limits. So in our case, you know, we caught quite a few, we let some go, but we're gonna have enough fish for a fish fry. And I'll tell you what, because it's not mud bottom, for the most part, Lake Erie is all hard bottom, limestone, the fish taste really good. So there's 2 reasons. One is to catch them for fun, and the other one is to catch them for enjoyment as table fare. You know, Lake Erie is like God made it for a walleye habitat. It's one of the shallowest of the 5 Great Lakes, and at the western end of Lake Erie, the water averages only about 10 to 15 feet deep. And that's where the very famous lure called the Erie Deary was developed. It was a weighted forward inline spinner that you put a worm on, and you literally just drifted with it across these very large flats. And early in the spring, most of the walleye in Lake Erie will be there on that big flat. And that flat is bordered by Ohio and Pennsylvania on the south side, Michigan on the west side, and Ontario on the north side. And then you have the Detroit River that flows in. So it's like a walleye breeding ground. They spawn there in the Detroit River and also in Lake St. Clair and also in Lake Erie. But then as the summer progresses, they migrate out and start heading east in Lake Erie. And that's down in our direction, towards the Niagara River. You know, we're running multiple diving devices. We were using a bottom bouncer up to 8 ounces. We're using something called a dipsy diver. We're also got the Scotty downrigger over here. And what I wanted to explain was the way we got it set up. So on the actual cannonball, which is down about 60, almost 70 feet, we're in about 70 feet of water, We have the actual release on a heavy leader like this attached to the cannonball, and then we have the actual release mechanism right here. It looks like a big clothespin. So you can see if I push it with 2 hands, it opens here. You'll notice that there are a couple of bars here. So that's almost like an indicator. If you're fishing for smaller fish or fish that hit light like walleye, you put your line in and you would put it to the first bar. You know, I use all kinds of boats. I fish freshwater, saltwater, but in Ontario, in Canada, I like to use a 17-foot aluminum. That's why I run a G3. It only has a 115 horsepower outboard motor, but I find that with that 115, I can go almost 40 miles an hour if I need to go fast. But also what's very important when it comes to walleye fishing and walleye trolling, I can troll down to about 1.2 to 1.5 miles an hour, depending what the wind is doing on the lake. And that's good to do with a 115 outboard. The other thing is that it's very fuel efficient because it's a 4-stroke.
Oh, fish on that one.
Okay, I was busy with the downrigger, so I wasn't watching. Okay, careful because I got the rod down in the middle here. Net's over here.
Feels like a good size one.
Good. Okay, used to go behind me, behind me. You're going the wrong way. Go this way. Yep. Watch the rods.
I know, yep.
It's another nice eating fish. Right up. Oh, good one. No, you're not allowed. Good thing you were in here, not over here. Just drop the fish if you're gonna go over the side. I can't believe you're exaggerating. You're handing it up like to make it look rough, eh? It's a nice walleye.
Yep.
Beautiful fish. Okay. Yep, he's going in the right spot. Release him in the well. Okay, you ready? Okay. What? You're getting that nice smell off your hands? I don't get it. Why would you do that? I tell people that's the smell of success. Canadian Sport Fishing has been brought to you in part by Rapala, premium fishing gear crafted from experience. Yamaha, Conquer Outdoors. Dickies, quality workwear since 1922. Bait Cloud, bring the fish to you. Easy Docker, docking made easy. You know, it's a little cool out here. You can probably tell I've got my hoodie on. I've got the hoodie over my head. I've got a thick buff on. And I've got Jeff Wood with me, a good friend. And we've had some nasty weather. It's about the middle of October, and we're looking for some walleye.